Welcome everybody. Welcome to the launch and introduction really of our ESG pillar within ATMA. So today we're going to, just going to move to the agenda. We're going to talk about the ATMA mission and vision in regards to our ESG pillar. And then we're going to go very high level into some of the jargon. So talk a little bit about what is sustainability and ESG. We'll take a look at the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and also have a quick look at Scope 3 and carbon offsets. We'll then tie that into the role of global mobility and sustainability. We'll look at some action steps that mobility leaders and people within our industry can take. And then we're excited to have Stephen Park on the call to give us an update on some of the innovative work they're doing at Schneider. And then at the end, we've got an exciting event that we're going to announce that will be coming up next month. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to go high level on some of these kind of elements of ESG today, but we do plan to put together more education resources, webinars going into more depth into some of these topics. Okay. So if we just take a quick kind of look at ATMA and the central pillars. So as many of you are aware, Asia Talent Mobility Alliance is a not-for-profit that is supporting our global mobility industry within Asia. And within that, we have 4 central pillars to support professionals within our industry. So we have the ESG and sustainability pillar, which we'll be focusing on today. We also have an advocacy pillar, an education and development pillar, which is something that we've already started with the mentor program. And we have a resources page on the website, which is available to members, where we list a large number of resources, education resources, as well as a huge resource library for ESG publications, resources, text, articles, and so on. And then the final pillar is event and networking. And we're going to talk about an event that we're planning next month. And you can keep an eye out for future events that we'll be planning as well. We've also been launching a number of monthly events in Singapore and other countries. So you'll see more activity around that as well. So a lot of these events are kind of restricted to members. So if you're not a member of ATMA yet, please join so you get access to this. Some of the monthly events, non-members can come along and kind of network and see what we're about. But the more people that join, then the more we can achieve and the more people can get engaged. Okay. In regards to the ESG pillar, our mission is to support members in integrating sustainable practices and values into their operations across APAC. And we aim to create long-term value for our stakeholders across the full ESG spectrum. So helping members manage environmental impacts, prioritize social responsibility, and maintain strong governance practices. And through all of this, we're embracing transparency, ethical conduct, inclusive engagement, and innovation to contribute positively to society and the environment within APAC and across the world. Okay. So I want to introduce you to the ESG committee. And if anybody is keen to join the committee and get involved, then please let us know. We're certainly looking for more members so that we can, build the community and achieve more. Myself, I'm Sean Collins, so I'm based in Singapore. I'm a managing partner at Talent Mobility Search, which is a recruiting firm and consulting practice within our industry. And I really got involved in sustainability back in 2011 when I was in Beijing, actually, in a previous role. And with the pollution in Beijing at that time, I just thought, I need to get involved. I need to be part of the solution. So I enrolled for a 4-month distance learning program with a university in Sweden on strategic sustainable development. And following that, I looked at how I could implement some of these practices within the global mobility program at the company that I was working. So one area I identified was with the car leasing program that we had with our expats. So I worked with the environmental officer at the time, and we put in place a cap on the vehicle emissions for the types of cars that our international signees could lease. So it was a small step, but it was, you know, an easy kind of win, if you like, to implement within our mobility program that, you know, could have a small impact, but across a large assignment population, you know, it wasn't too insignificant. So that was the start of my journey, and I'm very happy that I'm here today to help drive, you know, the discussion, the innovation, and you know, try to bring global mobility along with its ESG journey. So that's myself. I'd like to introduce Stephen Park. Stephen, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Stephen Park. I'm part of the International Mobility Centre. I'm with Schneider Electric in Singapore, previously in Hong Kong. And in terms of an introduction, Schneider is one of the most sustainable corporations in the world. So it's a topic that's close to our heart. It's part of our DNA in our organization. And what we're trying to do is have most of our clients go on this journey as well. So thank you, Sean.
Holly, do you want to go next?
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'm Holly. I'm with Reload Network Asia, based in Singapore. I've been with Reload Network Asia for 6 years in different roles. I'm currently the Sustainability Officer. I've been in Singapore for 15 years, and before that I was in Tokyo for 6 years. In my previous career I was with Goldman Sachs, and before that GlaxoSmithKline. I just started working in sustainability around a year ago, and it was a light bulb moment for me when I attended a talk on carbon accounting. Since then, I've been a very active member of the not-for-profit organisation, the Matcha Initiative, based in Singapore. I've taken a course with the University of Cambridge last year, and also the GRI Standards certification course. Okay, great. We will start then with the materials for today. So first of all, I'd like to take a look at a brief definition of sustainability. The term itself, sustainability, is used very broadly. It's used related to all types of businesses, products, policies, and it's a word that we see everywhere. The word itself was actually talked about most famously in the 1987 Brundtland Report, where the definition was given: sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This definition is very important because it emphasizes the balance between meeting current needs and ensuring that resources and the environment are preserved for future generations as well. Unfortunately, the overuse of the term has meant it's become somewhat diluted over time, and it can actually undermine efforts to address some of the core challenges that we face of sustainable development. So it can sometimes mean that it's harder to achieve the necessary balance between the current needs and the future viability. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. I'm sure everyone on the call is very familiar with these terms: environmental, social, and governance. So these are basically a set of standards which can be applied to a company's operations for socially conscious investors to refer to, particularly when screening potential investments. The concept itself represents somewhat of a shift because it doesn't just look at profits. It's looking more holistically across an organization. It focuses on these 3 key areas of environmental pillar, which is looking at climate change, biodiversity, and all of these items listed here. It's a very broad term, and it touches on many aspects of a business, particularly in the carbon space, which Sean will be touching on later. It also looks closely at the social factors of business, whether it's looking at equal opportunities, health and safety, human rights, and even to the very serious topic of child labour. And then finally, the governance pillar. This is looking more internally at a company's own policies, business ethics, compliance, its board, and many other aspects of internal governance. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the SDGs, these are a set of 17 goals which were set up by the United Nations General Assembly, and these are aimed to be achieved by 2030. These have been agreed to by 193 members of the United Nations. And when we look more closely at them, there's actually a lot of detail beneath each one. They provide a very useful framework for companies, businesses, and even individuals to refer to in their daily practices. But there's actually 247 separate indicators of sustainability performance layered beneath the 17 individual goals. We can also break them down into the environmental, social, and governance sections that we've just been looking at. And interestingly, the common thread which runs through all 17 of the goals is actually people. It's quite challenging for any business to be able to adhere to each of the 17 goals across all of their practices, but we can strive to attain as many as we possibly can through our supply chains, through our processes, and through our business practices. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so there's a lot of terminology here, a lot of different frameworks, and there's also some overlap between them. We've had a quick look at the ESG aspect. We've looked at the SDGs as well. There's another topic, which is CSR, corporate social responsibility, which many of us have probably embedded in our organizations already. So CSR is a little bit more internally focused. This is where companies may have their own individual practices. It could be supporting charities, it could be supporting the community, volunteering, and other internal projects that they're working on. So this is less touching on the broader aspects of sustainability or the SDGs and is more internally focused. When we try and put all of these concepts together, though, they can seem somewhat disjointed, but actually there is a lot of overlap in certain focus areas. And the one thing that bridges across all of these concepts is actually sustainability, which is right in the middle here. So the concept of sustainability can be considered a very broad umbrella term, but we do need to keep referencing that original definition from the Brundtland report. Okay, so looking back to last year, I'm sure many of us are very aware that 2023 was the hottest year on record. It was something that was felt globally and especially in Asia as well. Looking at the news stories last year, there were record temperatures in countries like Cambodia, Vietnam. There were droughts, but there's also severe flooding, and we can clearly feel firsthand, particularly in Asia, the real impacts of rising global surface temperatures. The United Nations has alarmingly now referred to it and confirmed it as being the era of global boiling. So this term is very important because it really signifies a shift from these sporadic concerns and discussions about global warming into a more urgent call to action for all of us. And all of the impacts that we're having on the planet. These temperatures give a clear indicator that these rapid changes in temperature aren't just scientific reports, these are real and these are happening, and we can expect to see much more of these prolonged heat waves, wildfires, storms, and heavy rainfall. So this really highlights a critical need for some immediate and robust action to address climate change across our industries and all of our businesses. Okay, so looking more closely now at a survey from the World Economic Forum. So they did a survey earlier this year asking senior business leaders to have a look and rank the impacts and severity over a 2-year and also a 10-year period for their businesses. And across all the different risks out there for businesses, including not just extreme weather and ESG factors, but things like AI-generated misinformation, societal and political polarization and other issues. Actually, extreme weather and environmental impacts actually came out on on top as a current risk factor for businesses. So in the 2-year time frame, the first and foremost risk to businesses is considered to be this risk of misinformation and disinformation due to AI. And second and 10th position, we can see ESG factors creeping in, including extreme weather events and pollution. But if we look into the next 10 years, we can see that environmental factors are a much higher risk for businesses. So these extreme impacts include weather events, critical changes to the Earth systems, biodiversity loss, as well as natural resources and pollution emerging as some key risks for businesses over the coming years. Okay, and finally, let's have a look at some regulation. So environmental related regulation, or ESG regulation, has become famously known as the alphabet soup over the past few years. There are simply so many standards out there, including GRI. Now we have IFRS, there's the TCFD, ISSB, and so many more. It's become quite confusing for businesses, individuals, and even industries to get to grips with all of these different requirements. They also vary depending on the jurisdiction that the businesses are operating in. The good news is there is a lot of convergence happening, and we do have two strongly emerging standards coming through. GRI is going to remain, the Global Reporting Initiative is going to remain one of the strongest standards out there, which will still be referred to. In Singapore, we'll be moving to the IFRS. So the end of last year, these standards were published. So there are actually two under IFRS. The first one will be IFRS S1 and then IFRS S2, which is mostly related to climate-related disclosures. So this is the one that will be most focused on environmental impacts, and it will be a requirement for listed companies in Singapore, and then in a few years' time for larger corporations in Singapore as well. The main objectives of this standard are to disclose information about the entity's climate-related risks and also the opportunities. It's actually very closely related to the TCFD, Task Force for Financial Disclosures, so there is a lot of alignment between the two standards. The main aim of this is to have this as a very good benchmark for environmental related impacts across the business. It encompasses physical risks, transition risks, and also opportunities.
Okay, thanks, Holly. And we just wanted to give a very high level kind of overview of some of the key concepts, but we will be delving into more detail in future webinars into some of these, especially the reporting, and going a little bit into more of the science, so that members can kind of upskill themselves. But one thing that you may hear about quite a lot is the different scopes, scope 1, 2, and 3. In the past, most companies kind of focused on scope 1, but now scope 2 and scope 3 are being kind of considered as well. And most companies now are setting their carbon neutral targets across all 3 scopes. So scope 1 is basically direct impacts, so especially coming from company facilities or company vehicles. So emissions coming directly from them. Scope 2 is typically indirect, so mainly from kind of electricity and utilities. And scope 3 is pretty much all the other indirect emissions coming from business activity, and relocation and business travel would fall under scope 3. So if you're looking at the impact that we have within global mobility, then we're looking within that scope 3 kind of realm, okay, in terms of downstream activities. Although saying that, some companies will have scope 1 and 2. So moving companies, for example, companies with their own facilities, of course, will fall under scope 1 and scope 2 as well. And we wanted to kind of look now at how all of this has a direct impact on global mobility. So what we've done here is we've taken a sample ESG report that NASDAQ put out for its members. And you can see here of each of the kind of criteria within the ESG buckets, which ones have a direct impact on mobility. So within the environmental kind of section, you've got your greenhouse gas emissions, primarily kind of your carbon footprint, as well as environmental operations. Under the S, the social side, this is where a lot of your DE&I initiatives will come in, as well as duty of care, global health and safety. And on the governance side, this is primarily around code of conduct, ethics, anti-corruption, data privacy, which is very important within our industry, considering the very kind of sensitive data that we hold. So again, you can see global mobility has an impact across the whole kind of ESG spectrum. Okay. And I wanted to go into this a little bit further and just model out a sample relocation from London to Singapore. And there's plenty of carbon calculators out there, and I've just used a few of these to calculate the carbon emissions from different elements of a typical relocation that we would see within our industry. Okay, and then I've looked at what an alternative could potentially be and the potential reduction in the carbon emission that we could achieve. So if you look on the left-hand side, you've got your household goods C, air shipment, look-see trip, temp housing, one-way flights, and the corresponding carbon emission in kilograms there. So you can see the total carbon emission is 40,171 kilograms of carbon, okay? Now, if we look at a more greener alternative, so if you're giving your transferees or assignees the option to take greener kind of alternatives, then you can see what the potential reduction could be. So taking a smaller container, for example, removing the air shipment, instead of a look-see trip, potentially combine that trip with an existing business trip, so there's not additional flights, using virtual destination services, and reducing the flights from business class to economy. So one thing to note here is that the big ticket items are really the household goods shipment and the flights. If you look at, for example, an orientation, the 3 days orientation with a car is 30 kilograms. If you reduce that down to 2 days, you only reduce it by 10 kilograms. So I think the key message here is that, if you want to make a big impact, you look at the big ticket items and maybe don't dwell so much on the smaller items that may have an impact on the employee experience. So, you've got a greater potential for saving if you look at, shipments, flights, and being a bit more selective in terms of how you kind of provide those provisions. Okay. So just quickly, some action steps. And again, we'll go into further details on future webinars in terms of how mobility can play a part. First action step, review your company's ESG sustainability report, so you familiarize yourself with the strategy and how mobility can play a part. Maybe talk to HR leaders as well and kind of understand how HR is playing into that strategy. And as part of that, identify key sustainability stakeholders within your organization and open up a conversation. Ask them how mobility can play a part and what data would be useful in terms of reporting and tracking. And then, of course, tracking and measuring. So identify metrics that can be measured and start reporting and identifying trends, set yourself KPIs. And as we saw, there's carbon calculators that you can use to kind of track or at least model out some scenarios. It's very useful as well to identify a sustainability champion on the team to help lead the initiative. And then develop a roadmap, so create and communicate a global mobility ESG strategy. And within that, you can set metrics and performance targets, look for quick wins, but also longer term goals. And as part of that, review existing policies and vendors. You can look at your policy to make sure it's inclusive of diverse employee groups, making sure that you're able to support diversity, looking at inclusion, equity, and also looking at potentially a sustainable relocation policy. And you could look at putting a traffic light system in place, for example, to help visualize and educate employees on their decisions. Okay, so just some ideas there. And now I want to hand over to Stephen to talk to you about what they're doing at Schneider. Thank you, Stephen.
Great. Thanks for that, Sean. So maybe a bit of an introduction into Schneider Electric and what we do. We have approximately 150,000 employees worldwide, and we have 39 billion US dollars in terms of revenue. That has been actually growing since COVID, so that's grown at 33% each year over the last 4 years. And our business growth has also our share price has also grown 38% year on year over the last 4 years as well. In terms of what we don't do lifts. That's Schindler lifts. We're Schneider Electric, and what we do is energy management consulting. So if you go back to some of the slides that Sean was showing, or Holly was showing, there was scope one. That's where Schneider Electric will go to organizations and look at the scope one emissions. Since COVID, with sustainability becoming a hot topic, that's where we've actually benefited from the current economic environment. And as the whole sustainability topic becomes more important with most corporations, that's where Schneider comes in, and we do our consulting services around this. So with that, we've also been nominated as one of the most sustainable organizations in the world. We also are considered a lighthouse when it comes to DEI, according to the World Economic Forum. And in terms of our employees, we have highly motivated employees as well. So all of that comes in with the concept of sustainability. With our population of mobile employees, it matches our business growth as well. So if we're growing at 33 to 38% per year, we do expect our mobility numbers to also increase in that same proportion, if not more. So if we look at our historical trends over the last 3 years, it has grown 40% since COVID has quietened down. So if we look at the next 2 years ahead, we do anticipate that growing at 40% each year. So if we look at our base number in 2021, on the left-hand side, we use that as our base here, saying it's the index is 100. In 5 years' time, 4 years' time, we do expect that to grow substantially. So that's why we've taken a step back. And although our mobility numbers are increasing, we did not want our carbon footprint to increase as well. Here, what we're trying to do is really look at the decarbonisation action. We wanted our mobile employee volumes to grow, but we didn't want our carbon footprint to grow as well. So we started off with why we're doing this. And for us, sustainability is core to our business strategy. So we thought we also needed to link in with that. So we tied in our own international mobility strategy to this. With that, we also wanted to come up with some plans, and some aspirations around this was to actually contribute positively to our sustainability index. So what Schneider's done as a consulting arm is we've come up with a way to measure an organization's sustainability index. With that, we benchmark across different organizations, and then we measure that so that you can see how an organization can improve its index over time. So in a way, if we look at our own sustainability index within Schneider, part of our bonus pool and some of our KPIs for our long-term incentives are tied around to how we measure against this sustainability index as well. I'll pass it on to the next slide. Thanks, Sean. So in terms of what we wanted to do was really create a vision. It took us a bit of time and research to come up with our own vision. And I think what I do like about what Sean and Holly have done is that they've actually, in a very neat format, have condensed all the research. We've done this research internally for about a year or two. It's nice to see in the space of 20 minutes that Sean and Holly have actually accelerated all that for you. So in terms of a resource, this is a really good platform where you can get some thought leadership and leverage that within your own organization. And it is quite a hot topic. So even when it comes to the vendor network, for us at Schneider, we are challenging our vendors to say, how are you looking at the sustainability topic? Have you got an EcoVadis score? What kind of things do you do in terms of looking at minority-owned businesses. How do you see yourself offsetting your own carbon footprint? So those are the kinds of challenge we're expecting our procurement team to have with our vendor network as well. So overall, as an industry, within international mobility, I do see this gaining momentum, and that's where we're happy to share what we've done. And if you look at the strategic goals, we haven't selected all of them. We've been quite selective around that. So if you look at how we tie that in with our own strategy, act for a climate positive world. For us, that's the decarbonisation. Be efficient with our resources. That's where we're looking at our talent eligibility criteria for our mobile population. So we don't want to provide mobility opportunities for all employees. We want to be quite selective with it. So measuring the carbon footprint at the cost estimate stage, that's the direction we want to go as well. So we want to, first of all, make sure that we're getting the right talent to be on the mobile journey. Then we want to make sure that the cost or the return on investment is positive. And then we also wanted to make sure with the carbon footprint, we do restrict that to talent that we want to move around the world. If we look at live up to our principles of trust, that's our policy and governance process. Create equal opportunities, that's our DEI. Harness the power of all generations. What we want to do is make sure that we do commit to our own strategy around DEI, and then empower local communities. And that's where we look at talent pipelines, as well as our own supply chain of our organization, as well as we also look at the supply chains of our relocation companies as well. You can go to the next slide, Sean. And similar to what Sean had, we've also gone through this journey over the last year or so. We've created our international mobility team to look at all the research, do some look at white papers, come up with best practices around the industry. We've sat down and split the documents between the team members, and we've kind of created a central document to say, hey, this is what we see in the market, this is what's really cool out there. And then we kind of distilled that into what we think would be the best practice for us as well. And we do have quite a lot of resources internally within Schneider, but what was really good was to see a lot of the different vendors out there with great thought leadership around this, and we definitely leveraged that as well. Then in terms of how we work with procurement, we have actually gone to our procurement and said, for our new RFPs, can you include certain elements of sustainability in there? And it's good to see that some of the weighting around this topic has actually, it's quite significant. So it's not only about cost or service, it's also about sustainability as well. Then we've created a budget, and what we wanted to do was go to our own Schneider sustainability consulting business, and we wanted them to treat us like a client, to actually say, okay, we're on this journey, we want you to treat us like a client and tell us how to do this as you would an external customer as well. So we're about to start that journey, so hopefully over the next 6 months I can come back and report to you how we've fared, what we've done, and I'm more than happy to share what we are doing, because not only will it benefit us in Schneider, if we all go on this journey together, we're more than happy to collectively reach those targets as well across different industries. With that, we also then we will create a steering committee and help us keep us true to the path, and help us get to that target of reducing the carbonisation of our mobility program. And then what we've done on the next slides is we've gone through, I won't take credit for this. This was actually from the BGRS white paper prepared in 2022. This was one of the documents we thought was wonderful. It goes through the different elements of a relocation policy, and they've put some very basic ideas around how we can decarbonize the different elements there as well. If you need access to this document, I'm not sure whether it's still available on the internet, but I'm more than happy to send you a copy of this. It was really enlightening for us, and it really gave us good food for thought as to what we could do from our perspective. Other things we're thinking of is maybe with the idea of creating a carbon footprint with the cost estimate is to then make it challenging for reasons to relocate someone across different regions. What we would like to do is actually invest in talent within the region, and that might be one of the ways we can reduce the carbon footprint of our mobility program. But if you look on the left-hand corner, that's the basis of our Schneider consulting practice. It's first of all strategize, get the data, understand what your current footprint is. Then it's to digitize, which is to actually reduce the carbon footprint by going through digital methods. Rather than having meetings, let's have Zoom meetings or team meetings. That's an example of how you digitize. Then with that, you measure the decarbonisation as well. So on the second page there from the BGRS report as well, you can see the different elements of what you could do with your own program. Great. And with that, I think we've got 5 minutes left. So I'm happy to announce that on the 29th of April, Schneider Electric, we will be hosting the next event. It will be face-to-face. On the 29th of April, turn up around 2:30 to our address here in Kallang Avenue. It's a massive building. We have 2,000 employees. We're a classic example of how we retrofit a building to make sure it reduces the carbon footprint. It has all our technology on show, so you can come and have a look at lots of engineering marvels, let's put it that way. So 2:30 you can arrive, have a look around our showroom, and then at 3 o'clock we'll go through our meeting. We'll talk about what we're doing with this sustainability strategy. I'll bring in some of the consulting group to come and talk about what they're planning to do for us. That way you can see how they actually operate this in person. Then we'll have some industry updates coming from maybe the different vendors that's still to be confirmed. And then we'll have 1 hour of networking, drinks and nibbles in our office as well. So with that, I'll pass it back over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Stephen. And just, yeah, we're all really looking forward to that event. And thanks, Stephen, for hosting ATMA. It's going to be a really great event to kind of look into how an organization such as Schneider is really kind of pioneering in terms of its ESG strategy and how mobility will play a part. So I think this is a really great event for mobility professionals to take part in. Now it's available for ATMA members because the attendance is quite limited. So if you're not a member of ATMA yet, please join so that you can participate. And we'll be sending out more details in due course about the registration process and how you can sign up. Okay. So that comes to the end. Now, we do have a little bit of time for Q&A, so feel free to put any questions into the box. There's a question here, will you be sharing the slides? Yeah, we can do that. We can send out the slides to the people that registered for the webinar today. And also, please get involved and let us know, what you would like from us with the ESG committee at ATMA. We want to make sure that we're serving you, our members, and we're providing the right resources and education and giving you the tools and skill sets you need to kind of take this forward within your own organization. So feel free to reach out to either of us. You've got our email addresses there. If you want to find out more about ATMA, about participating on the ESG committee, as part of the ATMA membership, you do have access to a huge amount of resources that we've posted on our website. We've got a huge kind of resource library related to ESG with hundreds of items and resources in there. So a really extensive library of information. As well as the ESG, we've got other kind of industry reports, surveys. So a lot of information are available to our members. So Yeah, with that, if anybody has any last questions, pop them on the slide now. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ray. Has any of the panel done an analysis providing a furniture purchase allowance versus shipping? It's a good question in terms of reducing carbon footprint. So I haven't seen one, Ray, but I think that would be an excellent kind of analysis to see. And if anybody on the call or any of the providers has done that, that'd be very interesting to see. So please let us know. And it also if any of the providers or any of the members or anybody in the community is doing anything pioneering or innovative, or you see a best practice, let us know and we can arrange maybe a forum or a webinar so you can share with the community, because what we're trying to do with ATMA and the ESG pillar is to create that forum to share, educate, share knowledge, and really help everybody within the mobility industry within Asia kind of further their knowledge and enhance the mobility function within Asia. But yeah, it's great. It's a great question, Ray, and I would love to see that. Okay, so we've come to the end of our time slot. So with that, I would just thank everybody for joining. Thanks, Holly and Stephen. And yeah, like I said, reach out to us through email or through LinkedIn if you want to find out any more information. And please look out for further information on the event we have coming up next month at Schneider Electric office. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
See you on the 29th.
Yeah. See you there.